the West, we take for granted that we understand the complexities of certain areas. Live in areas according to what their budget is. I can get it cheaper, I can get it cheaper, I can get it cheaper, I can find accommodation cheaper. You know, you're a lot more inclined to do something good with that $20,000. Yeah, oh, that money, I've eaten the money, it's finished, it's gone. I'm looking for more money now. Finding a place that will allow you to finish paying for a house over 5 years. How many of us can do that? Like before you know it, you spent 1,000 cities in a day. Pink, green, blue, yellow, any color that they feel, or all the colors in all the rainbow is inside the house. So hey guys, welcome back. Okay, today's video, I want to talk about one of the things that makes it very, very difficult for diasporans to move to Africa or to Ghana in particular, okay? And that is accommodation. Finding really good accommodation can be very difficult. In the West, it's so easy to do. You know, you buy or you rent. Those are primarily the two options that you have, right? And you can't really necessarily go wrong with either of those. But in Ghana, you still have the same options, buying and renting, but those options are a lot more complicated, okay? So first of all, when it comes to renting a place, the first thing you're gonna find is that you have to pay a certain amount up front, right? A lot of people ask for 1 year, 2 years advance in rent, which is quite a huge chunk of money, right? Especially if you come with some limited savings, then that's quite a lot of an investment to put down to find accommodation. And sometimes, because if you're coming to a country and you don't necessarily know the layout of the land, you don't even necessarily know what kind of area you want to move into. You don't have an idea. You know, in the West, we take for granted that we understand the complexities of certain areas. You know, there's certain areas that you'll move to, and there's certain areas where you'll be like, oh no, I wouldn't live there. Or you just know that it's not a good area. So you immediately rule those places out. Now in Ghana, it tends to be a bit different. So what people do is they live in areas according to what their budget is. So say, for example, a lot of people may say, okay, well, I'd love to live in cantonments. But the reality of you being able to afford a property in cantonment is going to be a lot harder than you perhaps finding some accommodation in Medina. Now, when you look at it, you'll be like, okay, if you don't know the area, right, you'll be like, okay, well, these two areas, the price difference, if I pay a year's rent, the difference is like $5,000 or something like that. For example, I'm just throwing a number out there. So you're more likely to want to go to Medina because you think it's more cost effective. And this is one of the things that I hear people say all the time. Oh, I can get it cheaper. I can get it cheaper. I can get it cheaper. I can find accommodation cheaper. That's fine. You could always, in this lifetime, right, you can always find something that is going to be much, much cheaper. It always exists. But it's just like what comes with that thing of getting something cheaper. So yes, you might be able to find accommodation cheaper, but then you might be right next door to a church. You might be on the busy roads where you don't get peace, just noise 24/7. If you can live with that, that's absolutely fine. Then by all means, go for that one that's so much cheaper. You know, or if you want to go live in Kaswa, where it will take you 2 hours to get to East Legon cantonments or so, where it would take you and that's where you do most of your business. If you can handle that, then that's great. But if you can't, then it's a problem. Now it might seem on the surface that, you know what, I'm just going to go for the cheaper one. I'll deal with the traffic. I'll deal with that. It's not like we don't have traffic in the West. Come to Ghana and see what it's like. It's just different. The climate is different. The terrain is different. You cannot compare the two things. So if you're looking for accommodation, if you pick the wrong area, and now you've picked the wrong area, and now you've paid, say for example, 1 year, and you know it's not supposed to be 1 year, it's supposed to be 6 months. Some people, if you find a good place, some people will even let you do month to month. If you find somewhere that's month to month, then you've got yourself a great deal. Trust me, because a lot of people here don't want to do month to month. And I can understand why people don't want to do month-to-month rentals, because it's so uncertain. Because of how people move in Ghana, right? When it comes to accommodation, someone can be here, say, okay, I'm going to be here. This is where I want to live. And then the next month they move out, and then you're just left stranded like that. And so a lot of people don't want to do that. They'd rather, and also the way that the money is in Ghana, people don't want to do month-to-month rentals like that because it's unstable for their income, and the way that people could just move out, it just doesn't make sense. So some people just like to, that's why we've got so used to this thing of if you're a landlord taking 1 year in advance up front, or even 2 years. 2 years is definitely not uncommon, right? So people do that because it allows them to do other things. So they'd rather take a lump sum from you up front, 1 year, 2 years, and do something with that money than wait for drips to come in. We in the West, we're used to, you know, we work on a month-to-month basis. So if you get money, you know that you get money every month, and so you calculate your lifestyle around, you get money monthly. But here, people prefer to get it up front, even if it means they get their money up front, and then for 2 years they have no money from you. They'd rather it be like that and then use that bulk sum of investment, which I can see the appeal behind it, because I mean, if someone's paying you rent and say it comes to, I don't know, they pay you 2 years in advance, you get $20,000. You're a lot more inclined to do something good with that $20,000 bulk money than if you were to be getting it as, I don't know, however much it calculates to be, $1,000 a month or whatever, right? And you having to stack it and make sure you don't touch it until, it just, so I can understand that viewpoint, but I can also understand it from the person who's looking for the accommodation, that it can be very difficult to part with that amount of money. So anyway, I don't want to lose track too much of what I'm trying to say in the video. So yeah, so parting with a huge chunk of money like that when you're coming to a country is going to be difficult. Parting with $10,000 for a year's rent is going to be a huge chunk out of what your savings is that you're moving to Ghana with. So there's that. And then now, you're not particularly sure about the area. So if you invest in something that takes a year's rental from you, either you have to stick it out for a year, or you have to be ready to forfeit that money, because a lot of landlords will not want to give you that money back, especially if they've taken it and they've spent it. I remember this one guy came to do work for me one day, and I'd given him like a huge chunk of money up front, and he came back because he wanted to do some more work for me. I said, but I just gave you money, you're looking for more work already. He was like, yo, that money, I've eaten the money, it's finished, it's gone. I'm looking for more money now. And like, it just, I don't know why it stood out for me what he said. He wasn't wrong in anything that he said. He's eaten the money, it's fine. I mean, that's his choice, it doesn't affect me. He's done the job. But it just made me think, it stuck in my head so much, because I'm like, that is the mentality that a lot of people here move with. It's not like you give them the money and it's going to sit in a bank account somewhere. They have chopped it, they've eaten the money, it's finished. They're looking for the next source of income, and so that's how it is. So if you have paid someone a year in advance, like they've chopped the money, it's gone. Like the chance of you getting that money back, unless they are someone who has money sitting in their account, the chance of you getting that money back is going to be very, very, very slim. And then you try taking the person to court, you're going to sit in court for however long. By the time you've gone through that whole process, it's a headache for you more so than it is for the person that you're taking to court. And so people just don't want to do, it's a mess. So accommodation can be very, very tricky. Even when it comes to, okay, I'm going to buy, for example, I'm going to buy a property somewhere. Again, how many people can buy a property out front like that, up front, okay? Although we can do mortgages in Ghana, mortgages are a lot more complicated than the West, because it's difficult to tie it to something. So you can't necessarily tie someone who's from the diaspora to a mortgage that's, say, 15 years, right? The chances of them absconding without having finished paying that is a lot higher, because you're not necessarily, although they will tie it to things like lands that you own, or they will tie it to maybe a business or something like that. It's just a lot more difficult. So rates tend to be higher. It's just a lot more complicated. And so the option that many diasporans are left with is to buy a property and pay over maybe 2 or 3 years. You might find some places that will allow you 5 years to pay, but even paying at 5 years, those are very few and far between, by the way. Finding a place that will allow you to finish paying for a house over 5 years, how many of us can do that? How many of us can pay for a house that costs, say, 250,000 over 5 years? How many of us have that kind of income? Because income is another thing that people struggle with when they come to Ghana. What am I going to do for money? So trying to buy a house is going to be very difficult. At prices like that is very difficult. Not to mention the fact that our real estate in Ghana is just off the chain. Like it's so crazy expensive. It's very difficult to find a property that is reasonably priced, but it's not impossible. It is possible to find places that are reasonably priced. And I think we are getting better in certain fields, but it's still a challenge to find it. You're going to be hunting for a while. And even when you're hunting to find this ideal property, you still need somewhere to live. You can't buy a property necessarily from abroad where you're going to say, okay, well, let me look online. online, let me look on Zoopla or whatever and see what properties are available. No, you need to be on the ground in order to buy a property here. So either you're going to come back and forth to look at property, and things change so fast that it's better for you to be on the ground here and look for a property than it is to try and do it from abroad or have a contact to do it for you here. You need to be able to see it for yourself, unless you highly, 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 highly trust the person and the person knows exactly the requirements that you're looking for and what you want. So that makes it difficult. Now let's talk about building. When it comes to building as well, now you're talking about looking for land, you're looking to build, that's going to take you how long? You're still going to need a place to live while that is all happening. Trying to live in a hotel while you're doing that is going to be very difficult. Even finding a reasonably priced Airbnb can also come with challenges unless you don't mind being on the outskirts. Again, it's all about location. Location matters so much in Ghana because moving around can be so difficult, and you tend to build a life around where you live for the most part. But then if you want to do business things, you need to be in the city, and in the city, going up and down is expensive. I know people that live in Tema, and if you live in Tama, trying to do anything in Accra, it's expensive to go up and down. You may think, okay, well, if I have to take an Uber and it costs me 100 cedis or 120 cedis to come into Accra, it's not that bad. You calculate it to dollars and you think, oh, well, it's not that bad, Ubers in the West, Ubers in America, Ubers in the UK are so much more expensive. But try doing that every day, back and forth, and see how much it eventually costs you. Not to mention the fact that when you're in Accra, you need to get something to eat. Like before you know it, you spent 1,000 cedis in a day, and you don't even understand where the money's gone. Things can get very, very expensive very, very quickly. So Accra is not cheap to live. It can be very, very expensive. So accommodation makes it very, very difficult for people. Trying to build a house I don't have to tell you, people that have watched me for a long time, building a house is not without its challenges. It can be very, very tricky. Even if you find a reasonable rental property to live in, people still have challenges where you're faced with, okay, sometimes the property, it's multicolored inside. I don't know what it is about Ghanaians and painting the inside of a property pink, green, blue, yellow, any color that they feel, or all the colors in all the rainbow is inside the house. So you're like, in order to make it comfortable so you feel welcome to stay there, you're now talking about doing a paint job. You're not now talking about making certain improvements to the property. Whereas even though we do that to some extent in the West, to the level that Ghana has to do it is a different thing, right? And then sometimes you have to even make improvements to the house. Sometimes the plumbing may not be correct, and the landlord is supposed to take responsibility of those things. They don't necessarily do it. I know, I've rented in Ghana before, and it had its problems where you're having to fork out to do certain things, because if you wait for the landlords, but the end of your tenancy will come and the thing will still not be done. It's a whole wahala that you just don't want to do. So sometimes it's just cheaper and easier to do it yourself, but then now you're investing into a house that you're not even going to stay in. And so that's the problem that a lot of diasporans have, finding somewhere to lay their head. Now, even if you have family here and you say, okay, I'm going to live with family, that won't be its own matter, because you know how it is in our people here, Ghanaians. You live with family. They want to know everything. They're in your business. It's just a Ghanaian thing. It's a cultural thing. They're in your business. They want to see. They know what time you left the house. They know what time you're coming back. They know who you came back with. So if you're a person that likes privacy, living with family is going to make it very difficult. And for some of you, it's not even an option that you're even going to take, because you like to keep your private life private. And in the West, where you've lived by yourself for so long, you're an adult, you're doing your own thing. Now to have to come back and live under someone's roof, now you're living under someone's rules. How many of us as adults want to do that? It's difficult to do. It may be easy to do if it's like a 2-week holiday, even a month holiday, but after that it's tiring. So you need to find your own place, and that can be very, very difficult for a lot of people to do. So first of all, as I said, you have to make sure you're finding the right location. You have to find something that's within your budget, something that perhaps doesn't need too much work, something that you can trust, has not been rented out to multiple people, because people also fall prey to some scams that happen here. I've talked about it before, many years ago, where there was this one particular property that was being rented out to multiple people, and everybody turns up on the same day to move into this house, and the property doesn't belong to anybody. Like the person that rented it is not even their property. I don't know how they got access, but anyway, you don't necessarily hear about stories like that as much anymore. I think things have definitely got a lot better. So that's not particularly something I would worry about too much, and there are ways to navigate around that anyway. But yeah, that's one of the things that makes it difficult for people to be here. A lot of diasporans tend to do that. You know, they travel back and forth because sometimes they're going back to make some money before coming back to Ghana. So they want to make sure that their belongings are safe. Now we've heard about stories where when you're away, sometimes the landlord will go through your stuff. It happens. I've heard about it. The landlord, while they know that you've traveled, they go look through your stuff. Things can go missing and all of that. So they want a trustworthy place that they can feel free to leave their stuff. And I get it. Like I said, I've rented before, and that was also my worry. Like, what if someone comes into the house while I'm away? Like, what security is available? Even if you have a security post at that door, you know, anything can happen. So it's about that security that a lot of people want to have. So there are so many things to think of when it comes to that dynamic of, you know, accommodation. And so there's a lot to think about. It's not a straightforward, necessarily easy thing to do. So for a lot of people, that makes it difficult for them to move back until they feel that they're in a position where they feel safe and secure and know that the accommodation is done and under their belt. And I think for most people, if most people can get accommodation done, that's like 50% of the battle of moving to Ghana. But I get how difficult it can be. Even for me, you know, my first few years in Ghana were very unstable because, you know, for those of you that have been watching me for a while, I moved in with my dad for a while. That was just difficult. I mean, it was okay for a short period, but after some time, you know, you need your space. You want to live under your own rules. So then moved into another place where we rented. There were problems with the property. The plumbing was terrible. Like one of the rooms it was a 4-bedroom property. One of the rooms was just unusable because of the smell from the plumbing that would come out. It was just like that door just remained closed. So it became like a 3-bedroom property instead of a 4-bedroom. Like it had its own issues. When it rained, the outside flooded. Like it was an issue, and we had paid two years rental. So we had to stick it out for 2 years, you know. And then we moved to another place, and then it had its own issues there as well. So I get it. Like I've been down that road. Like I know how difficult it can be, you know, not feeling like you're actually settled and having to move every 6 months, a year. You're having to find a new place, and finding a new place here comes with its challenges, you know, like dealing with landlords and, you know, all of that stuff can be very, very tricky. But I think if you can find a good place and you feel settled, then half your battle is won when it comes to moving to Ghana. But anyway, I'd love to hear your stories, what it's been like for you moving here. What was it like finding accommodation? I'd love to hear your stories. Let me know what it's been like for you in the comment section. Let's talk about it some more. Okay, if you are looking for a place to rent, my Airbnbs are available. I have two one-bedroom Airbnbs that are available, located in a very good location, safe, secure, all of that good stuff. Let me know, send me an email. Also, if you'd like to do a one-to-one consultation with me about moving to Ghana, you can send me an email to dela@moretodela.com. Okay, and that's where I'm going to leave the video. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, leave me your comments. Let's talk some more in the comment section. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Don't forget to also like, comment, and share this video. Until next time, I am out. Nutifafa.
Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're giving me wind and rain.